Welcome to the March 3rd edition of the PFF Forecast. This is going to be a good one. I can already feel it. We've got a bunch of good stuff here. We're going to talk about a boxing match, apparently, between Eric and I. We're going to talk about J.J. Watt, the Bears quarterback situation. We're going to guess the win totals for the NFC West. And we have mean mock draft tweets for the end of the podcast. It's going to be awesome. Let's rock.
George, I thought the funniest thing we talked about, obviously, before the podcast was my impromptu boxing matches as a high schooler. But you finished it off really funny. So I noticed every once in a while I take an interest in George. I say, George, your beard looks less full today.
Sure.
Did you get it cut when you were in D.C.? He said, of course, you're like, no, you're a DIY, do it yourself. Yeah, like with your beard. But the reason you gave me was that when you have a big beard, you let yourself go a little bit.
Yeah.
And the chin.
You can have a fatter face.
You do. Look, as somebody who has had various gradations of fat faces, I know. So
I mean, look, it's all about preparing yourself for summer, because summer's coming.
I know.
Can
summer
feel
in
it out there
Cincinnati.
today.
Yeah, summer in Cincinnati. The thing about Cincinnatians is that they're discerning people in the summer. If you come out of here without your A game,
True.
Last summer, we're coming up on the pandemic, 1 year anniversary. Last summer, like, how many times did you go downtown? Like thrice?
I was a staple at the Ohio River banks. Yeah. That was me. All right, we're off to a good start. Let's talk about this. So you were on a panel for, was it University of Michigan Analytics Club? I overheard you as I was walking in. And you said they asked you who you would want to fight at PFF. And you chose me. I'm honored, personally.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Everybody else wouldn't do it.
Well, everyone else would get butthurt, and it would get, I think we'd get the right amount of competitive as we do on the basketball court without like actually wanting to kill each other, at least after the fact. But here's my question. Okay, let's say we boxed. What are the odds on that?
So I think if you would have asked the same question 6 weeks ago, I would have made you minus 300, minus 400.
Okay, keep going.
I do have reach, and I am strong.
You have reach, and you have what? A large amount of weight on me.
I do, and I'm strong.
Yeah.
I can, but until I started like getting back in the gym, I probably would have keeled over after 2 punches. I have worked on my cardio over the last 6 weeks. I think that was always the thing. So in basketball, you are more skilled than I am, but it's not that distant. But and I am pretty athletic for a big guy, but where you got me was after, if the game extended to 15 points or so, I
got a little gas.
I would get gas at the end. To me, that was like in boxing, like that's an underrated part of it.
Oh, it's a huge part of it.
So I would put you still as a favorite, but I think there's obviously.
So you're saying you've closed the gap a little bit.
I've closed the gap a little bit, but you're still a favorite.
Which I am shocked that you would make me a favorite, because I would think that reach and weight.
You are the most competitive person I know. So like.
I would be very.
But here's the thing, I would have to knock you out.
This is true. That's a very good point. But you would know that going in.
Yes.
I'm a little nervous already just thinking about it.
It would be like sprinting for me. Like I would take some real big swings.
Yeah. So if we went 12 rounds,
I might not even die. I'd be minus.
My goal would be to make it to the 12th round and not die. This is now.
You know what I'm saying?
Intrigued.
Like, and so that that's the calculus now. Now, I think that would be the only reason why I picked you as the boxing person, because everybody else, it's kind of like, well, they're not as competitive, so it's not as fun either, right?
Yeah.
Austin's competitive, although he's a lot less so than you are. Like
Austin has a mean streak. Here's the interesting one, is if you did like the tail of the tape with us two, it'd be so funny.
You're like battling Steve.
You know, like reach. How many pounds do you have on me right now?
I probably weigh.
Have you weighed yourself recently?
240.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm big.
Yeah,
former tight end.
Yeah, you've got me
back down to my
solid
college
amount.
tight end weight though. So I'm like.
When would the last time be that someone giving 70 pounds was a favorite in a fight?
It would be a long.
That can't happen.
It'd be a long time. So maybe. But here's the other thing. I'm just not a good fighter. Like I haven't boxed since 11th grade when I boxed my now brother-in-law in the backyard of my friend's house. Yeah, in our fight
All right,
club.
we got to set this up, and we've got to take some bets. This will be a lot of fun. We'll wear the headgear, and hopefully I don't.
The last
die.
bet that I lost physically was, of course, the that I could push press 225 pounds.
Yes.
And I got to what, like 210, and
Yeah, I
had
won
to
that
wear
bet.
had to wear the cutoff. I don't think I'm going to agree to a cutoff on the podcast this time.
Yeah, that was a mistake by you, but it's okay. You can't win them all.
I got close.
You did get close.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk. Let's talk about the Bears quarterback situation, because we were doing this whole calculus of, okay, who are the teams that either don't have a quarterback right now, or at their current draft slot are probably out of reach of a quarterback. And it's like, okay, the Broncos, and some Broncos fans are like, no, we do have a quarterback. Okay, sure, but at least you're in a position where with the top 10 pick, you could get your quarterback.
Yeah.
The Bears don't have a quarterback, and they're at 20. So, like, what are the Bears? What could the Bears do?
I mean, do we start a new segment called Pie Chart of Possibilities?
I mean, I love pie, but okay, let's do it.
So, Bears fans are going to hate me for this, but I think there's a 33% chance that Mitch Trubisky is a starting quarterback week 1.
33.
Mm-hmm.
33. So
I mean, he's taken him to the playoffs two out of the 3 years, George.
he's the MVP.
He's the MVP.
Man.
He's bad, but he's not like trip over your own feet all the time bad, is he?
But don't you think about if Nagy and Pace are sitting there and they go, hey, we run it with Mitch again. Like, don't you feel like they could buy themselves a little bit of time if they get a little bit of, even if it's small, a little bit better play from another quarterback and be like, look, there's no.
Like, okay, I'm going to give you some thinking here that I think stems from there that might play into their thought process. Like I said, I think it's 3-1, so I don't think it's favorite, but 6-3 as a starter, 67% completion, about 7 yards per pass attempt, which used
down the stretch, right?
Used to qualify as league average. Mm-hmm. 16 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 2-1 touchdown interception ratio.
God, you can see it already,
right? Because in 2018 he had a 66.6% completion percentage, 24 touchdowns, 12 picks, 2-1 ratio, made the playoffs that year. I mean, if they're 6-3, the Foles starts are really what killed them last year. I mean, none of us are saying this, right? But if you're the Bears and
it was all the offensive line. They just
you
have to
know
sit
what I
there
mean?
and draft a tackle.
Like I said, I'm not doing
this,
but I'm trying to get into the mind of one Pace.
So keeping Mitch Trubisky, you have as 33%.
Yes.
I think it's a little bit less. I'm going to go 25%.
Okay, but it's still high. I still think it makes a lot of Bears fans nervous as hell.
It would make me nervous as hell. I, for one, am rooting for that. Okay, I would like to see. Mm-hmm. I would like to enjoy another year of Mitch Trubisky. Okay, what's the next option?
The next option is a mid-tier veteran. So I'm talking about the likes.
Teddy B.
I'm talking about Jameis, Teddy, like somebody like that, a mid-tier veteran. I think that price. So I think Cam, who had better yards per attempt last year than Big Ben. I'm thinking that's about I think that's about a 50-50 shot.
That's what I was leaning towards too. And, maybe there's some guys in there that that we're not thinking about who could be an option. And I'll throw it out there. I was thinking about this. What about Jimmy G?
Mm-hmm.
He's
got some Chicago looks to him. He's tough guy town.
He went to school in Chicago, in Illinois. And I think Nagy would value what Jimmy could bring to the table for his offense.
I think if Nagy knows what he's going into beforehand, he's a very good offensive coordinator. The year that he tried to make Mitch into a real NFL quarterback is where they failed.
It's a real struggle. Yeah, it didn't work out so well. I wouldn't write that off. I think Teddy Bridgewater, a decent shot. But let me ask you this. What's more, because I've thought about this as a Niners fan. If you're a Bears fan, what's more depressing? A mid-tier veteran or Mitch again?
I think Mitch again. I think it's
why? Because you have no hope.
I think it's Mitch again. Yeah, because
at least with someone else, you're like galaxy braining yourself into like, what if they have a career year?
Right. So there was a year in 2012. You remember the year Adrian Peterson rushed for 2,000 yards, and Ponder had like maybe 1.5 good games.
Yeah.
And they went into Ponder in 2013, and it was like the first game you're like, oh fuck, he doesn't have it. The defense sucks. This is, and you're staring 15 games down the barrel,
right?
And you're like, this sucks. Whereas at least, right, if you go Teddy or you go Jameis or you go Jimmy G or you go Andy Dalton, for fuck's sake, like if you go one of those guys,
dear God,
then you're at least saying, okay, like, it's sort of like with Vikings fans when they sign Matt Castle. It's like, okay, this guy sucks, but at least he's different than what you had before.
Okay, I can get on board with that. I'll give that 50% as well.
Maybe it's a little high though, because I said 33%. So you did 25, so I'll go 40%. So I'm up to 73.3%.
Yeah, I'm at 75 right now. What's the next option?
Okay, the next option is drafting a quarterback at 20 or trading up to draft a quarterback.
I mean, there won't be a quarterback available at 20 that you're considering as a first round pick.
Well, we were talking about this off air. If a quarterback,
like if you think a quarterback is good and you can't trade up 4 spots or 5 spots, and I'm guessing the place that people are looking at, the pivot point here, would be the Niners at 12 and the Patriots at 15. So if you're the Bears and you like Mac Jones, you are trading up ahead of those teams, right? And if a guy falls to that point, that means that you didn't like him that much. And in a league right now where it's very clear, look, the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, teams went up and got, okay? So there's that narrative around them too with Allen, Mahomes, Watson. I just don't think you're staying at 20 and drafting a guy worthy of being a first-round pick unless they go with potentially future guest on the forecast, Chris Sims, who has Kellen Mond up there highly, and you're like, you have a contrarian view and you take a guy there. I am going to say that has a low chance of happening.
Well, I think they're still reeling off of the Trubisky trade and the Khalil Mack trade where they're not going to want to give up that many.
So I have 25% left. I'm guessing we have one more option after this. I'm going to go 10%.
I'm going to go 7.7% to get me to 80 total so far.
Okay.
Pie chart of possibility.
I'm at 85.
The remaining 20% is the likelihood that they surprise people and get Watson, Wilson, or Prescott. I'm putting Prescott out there. Prescott's different because he's a free agent likely.
Yeah.
But
okay, so now I want to change my pie here, because if you're Deshaun Watson, the Bears aren't on your list, right?
If you're Deshaun Watson, the Bears,
they traded up to take Mitch Trubisky instead of you.
Yeah, but do you have like animosity towards them, or do you play the game last year where you lost to them 33-7? You're like, oh, this team would be good if they had me. Yeah, let them right or wrong here.
I just figure he can choose his team, and that wouldn't be a team I'd choose. I'm not going to go back on what I said though, and I'm going to stick with 15% that they trade for a guy. I'm very interested.
One of the bigger guys, yeah.
I'm very interested. Yeah. Sorry. I'm very interested in what they could do to potentially get Russell Wilson. Like, could you convince Pete Carroll and the defensive-minded Seahawks, who had no pass rush, that like Khalil Mack, it's actually Khalil Mack that you need?
Would you put
even saying
what
that is
price
incredible.
would you put on
Khalil Mack, Jalen Johnson, and 2 ones?
Jesus. What would you put a price on the Seahawks actually trading him? I put it almost zero. I mean, I can't imagine them trading it. I don't know.
And you're giving that what percentage?
After saying that, but I still think 20. I think Dak is an underrated possibility to be a free agent. Or through the franchise tag you can acquire him somehow.
What would it take? Because the tough thing for the Cowboys is then they're like, who's their quarterback?
Yeah, but that was the tough thing last year too.
Yeah, but you can't go from Dak to Dalton. Like, you got to at least have a viable option.
But Dallas is picking in the top 12, right?
True. Maybe they go rookie. That would be fascinating.
Well, whatever they get for Prescott, they could use to
move up
to get somebody like Wilson or Fields. I mean, Fields is going at 8 if you look at the NFL.com analytics model.
That's actually a fascinating thought. So because I was listening to Allen Robinson, who was a phenomenal interview.
By the way, Chris, total boss, wearing a Callaway hat, like literally at the clubhouse at the golf course.
He was on the first tee while doing the interview. But it was Chris, Richard Sherman, Allen Robinson on the Chris Collinsworth podcast this week. And Allen Robinson was basically saying that he had scouted every rookie or soon-to-be rookie quarterback. He was like, yeah, I watched Trevor Lawrence's pro day. Like, who the hell does that? But he was talking about these guys, and you can tell there's a real feeling among NFL players that there are 3, maybe 4 guys, and he was talking about Mac Jones, how much he liked him, talking about Trey Lance, that these guys could come in and be players right away, and you're seeing this more often. So I'm going to make the case that maybe the Cowboys are better off doing that.
I don't know, man. Look, a lot of the questions we had about Prescott last year were answered.
How confident are you that Dak Prescott has top 5 quarterback in his possible range of outcomes?
He was playing that way early in the season, and they didn't have a good offensive line for a lot of that time. 2 of his wide receivers were quite young.
I would say
Zeke gave him nothing.
I would say, though, that he was fringe top 5 at the beginning of the season. Like, it's
yeah, he was stupid good at the beginning of the season before he broke his ankle. Like, that was but you're right. I mean, there's always these questions because I mean, he's holding out for the bag at this point. Like,
and he should.
You're not getting.
But would you rather bring in Justin Fields and have him for 5 years?
Cowboys $19 million under the cap.
So you look at the Cowboys and you go, are the Cowboys say the Cowboys get Dak back? Are they a Super Bowl contender? No. Right?
The only reason they're a Super Bowl contender is that they have an offense that can compete with anybody, and they play in a dog shit division.
Man, to say they're a Super Bowl contender, because I think the point that I would make is they actually have a long ways to go to be, well, maybe not a long ways, but they have a little ways to go to be a Super Bowl contender.
There's only 2 teams in the NFC that have more salary cap space than they do.
Okay, so say they traded and let's say they found a way to get Justin Fields. Okay.
Yep.
So you bring in Justin Fields. You look at Justin Fields and you go, man, mobile quarterback, accurate.
Well, he's
strong arm. Like, he has a stronger arm than Dak. Runs like Cam Newton. Okay, you put him back there. Now you have all this flexibility.
Yeah.
You go sign a pass rusher. You can sign some offensive line.
It's sort of like Daking Dak, because Dak was so valuable to Dallas because he was free. Because he was basically free, and not that Fields will be free, but it'll be freer. And then if you're Dallas, then you sort of do some things to sort of shore up the defense. Because, like, that was what – so somebody in the comments the other day was saying, like, oh, you're going to go Dallas and get another wide receiver. It's like, do you think that one draft pick would have made Dallas's defense representable last year? No. Like –
well, if it was a defensive coordinator.
If you have to build – if your defense sucks, it takes more than one player to make okay, or it takes a lot of luck or the lack of bad luck to make it. And so how does Dallas do that? Well, they keep the money that they were going to pay Prescott, and they build around him. Now the hard part is like it's just so wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like they franchise tag him, and he gets hurt, and then they just let him go, and it's like,
well, okay, sending Dak Prescott to Chicago, and then that, I think in hearing Allen Robinson talk, it sounded like the 2-quarterback thing for Chicago was an absolute travesty. Mm-hmm. And he was very kind to his former quarterbacks, kinder than he should have been. But like you would assume that means Allen Robinson is like, okay, I'll come back to Chicago now. And now you've got, like, he may legitimately have as good of, if not a better chance of winning in Chicago than the Cowboys do. That's actually a great question.
Yeah.
Like, if you're Dak Prescott and you're looking at the Cowboys or the Bears have a defense. Mm-hmm. They have an offensive mind. I don't know that you would say Nagy or McCarthy are significantly better than one another. No. And you have some receiving weapons. Now, obviously, Dallas's are better. Who has a better chance of winning? Dak with the Cowboys or Dak with the Bears?
Both divisions are not trending very well.
The NFC East really sucks.
Yeah, the NFC North is going to really suck soon.
It's going to be the Packers with Rodgers, however long he lasts. Yeah.
Right. No wide receivers.
What do you have to give up for Dak? So say it's a tag and trade. Is 20's not enough?
Given that the contract is that big and Dak is considered a rung below Watson, take what you offer for Watson and probably cut it in half. Plus, the contract is going to be more expensive than Watson because it's signed a year later.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think it is?
I would probably say 2 ones.
So the 20th pick and another one?
Probably some more. Yeah, 20th pick doesn't – once you know that pick has a number attached to it, it doesn't seem that high. So maybe it's 2 ones and like a future 2 or something like that. I don't know. Like, it's not as much. Like, it's also – I think the league views Prescott less.
They definitely do.
Like, if he would have played out the string last year, he's probably – Dallas has the biggest egg on their face of all time because they probably go 9-7, win the NFC East if he plays out the string, and like that team is garbage still without with him, and they pay him the $45 million a year or whatever he's going to end up making, and they have no resources to do anything else. Like it's weird the way it worked out.
I would go check out the quarterback annual and take a look at how good Dak was in limited amount of playing time last year. It was eerily Deshaun Watson-esque in that he was playing really well and his team was losing football games. Mm-hmm. So it's a good conversation that we will certainly revisit at some point.
So Mitch Trubisky back to the Bears. Confirmed.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's talk NFC West here. J.J. Watt, Cardinals, and we're going to guess the win totals of the NFC West. I'll set the table here by reading the division odds, which I have to admit here, okay? I guess the win totals. I go, okay, based on my win totals, here's who I think should be the favorite in the NFC West. And I was wrong. Here are the odds on DraftKings.com. The Arizona Cardinals are 5-1. The Seattle Seahawks are 3-1.
Yep.
My San Francisco 49ers are 2-1. And the favorite to win the NFC West is the Los Angeles Rams at plus 180. So let's start with the Cardinals.
Yeah.
What did you think their win total
I have all of these teams
will be?
At 500 or better. I have the Cardinals starting at 8 flat.
Okay. I wrote should be 8, will be 9.
Ugh.
I'm telling you, man. I texted you this last night.
I know.
Slacked you this. We're gonna bet the Cardinals under win total. I know. You know it. They were 8-8 last year with the Hail Murray, with a lot of really, really good play from Kyler Murray.
Not only that, but that Sunday night game where Metcalf was streaking down the sideline.
True.
David Moore.
Great point.
Yeah, so there was a 6-10 team without luck.
And I think that I don't know. So here's the things that are contributing to this. So J.J. Watt comes and signs with the Cardinals. He gets $15.5 million per year. Brad Spielberger, he and Jason over the cap, OTC, are the two best at what they do. And he thought that the contract should be about $12.5 million. Okay, you got Kyler Murray on a rookie deal, whatever. But the idea that J.J. Watt is going to play like a $16 million a year pass rusher is a little overblown at this point.
Or is it worth it?
I mean, but I think that's the point. Is like people are going to look at the number, look at the name on the jersey, and be like, yes, he's going to bring all of that, locker room presence. And it's like, okay, well, he brought that to Houston and they sucked.
Locker room talk.
So you have that. I think people are overrating the Watt, are going to overrate the Watt signing. And here's the other thing I think they're still really overrating: Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah. Well, Cliff, I was talking about this on VSiN the other day. Cliff got them from like half of a yard per play worse than the next best team in 2018 to like 20th. Mm-hmm. I think Cliff's good at that. It remains to be seen if Cliff is good enough to beat. Because that's the thing. If you run a competent offense in the NFL, there's so many bad defenses that you can like kind of central limit theorem your way to like 18th. It takes a little bit more to become a good offense, right? Like a going from like 18th to like 10th, 10th to 5th, 5th to 1st. Like that takes some skill, and I'm skeptical that Kingsbury can do that.
Kyler Murray, I'll also point this out. So Kyler Murray, grade from a clean pocket, was 17th of 32 quarterbacks. Grade under pressure was 8th. Now, he was so good at scrambling around last year. He got hurt. We saw that really, fail him towards the end of the year. So you worry about that. But here's where I'm really nervous. 130 passer rating on 20-plus yard throws. Phenomenal. Okay, he throws a really nice deep ball. 72 passer rating on throws between 10 and 19 yards downfield. We've talked about this. The intermediate area of the field, he just does not win. And that's
you
concerning.
have to hit doubles in the NFL. Like I was writing this about Trey Lance. Trey Lance had more yards during his start at his year starting at NDSU, over 20 yards in the air than 10 to 19.
Yeah.
Herbert almost had more yards last year from 20 plus than 10 to 19. Like those are red flags.
This is the last thing I'll say about kind of where I think there's value here on the under, will be value on the under. Remember when we did the Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray, who would you rather have? The number of people that said Kyler Murray was astounding. There's the fantasy football darling narrative that's out there that I think right now is legitimately like public sentiment that moves things. And so I think it's going to be 9. I think we're going to bet the under.
Jeez.
All right.
I mean, you have to. Dude, did you know this, by the way? So the St. Louis Cardinals moved to Phoenix in 1988, became the Phoenix Cardinals. The Phoenix Cardinals never had a winning season. The Arizona Cardinals, when that franchise went from moving to Phoenix in 88 to 2007, one winning season in 20 years. They deserve a winner, George. I just don't know if it's going to be this year.
Okay, let's go to the Seahawks, who are 3-1 at DraftKings, and I thought they should have been the favorite. I have their win total. I think their win total will be 10 in the market.
I said 9.5.
I said should be 9.5, but will be 10.
Oh, okay. I think it'll be 9.5. I think. Remember the Seahawks for the 2 years, 18 and 19, where they were basically at 9.5, 8.5. I think it was in 18.
Yeah, it was 9.5 last year. They won 12 games, and I'll mention this: they played 11 one-score games,
Yeah.
most in the division by a mile. They went 8-3 in one-score games.
Yeah.
So
but I think the market in the NFL is sharp, though. I do think that they will regress that.
Yeah. I think you're right that it will be under 10, clearly. I think they should be the favorite in this division, and I don't understand why they're not. And I am, 3-1, like, yes. They're not trading Russell Wilson. They're going to get him some help. Like, if anything, I see that passive-aggressive trade demand as being a reason to make them the favorite.
Passive aggressiveness works. That's why people do it.
Yes, that's a great point. Well, it worked. I'm going to push back on that. Passive aggressiveness works ultimately at creating a really terrible relationship.
Yes, of course.
But
it extends. It extends.
It extends things.
No, I was mostly joking, but I agree. Where is it here? I see it on this book. I see it as plus 248. So yeah, you're getting a value, by the way, if you go to our friends DraftKings and bet that number.
Are there any? So I do think though that there's a legitimate path to the Seahawks becoming a lot better because of the passive aggressive trade demand.
Yeah, of course.
Because they believe run first. I don't need that many wide receivers. Like if they went out and invested in a number 2 wide receiver, Tyler Lockett's now. How much better do you feel about your team if Tyler Lockett is your number 3? I was having a conversation. The guy that was cutting my hair asked me about the Seahawks, and I go, Tyler Lockett is not a number 2. You convinced me. And you know how you know this? Because he'll blow up one game and then disappear.
Exactly. He's perfect as a 3.
But as a 3, you love that. Because when your 3 wide receiver has 3 touchdowns, you're ecstatic. When he has 1 catch or 7 yards, it doesn't matter.
But the thing is you count on your 1 and 2 to be consistent most games. You do not count on your 3. But and that's it's hard to say that because folks got after us about that in the comments. But like Lockett is a 1,000-yard receiver. Like he's great, but his production is like. And he doesn't stay healthy either. You look first half, second half splits. Like his yards per route run are like twice as many first half of the year, second half of the year because he breaks down.
I would also say that's because they have to overuse him.
Yeah. Early on. That Cardinals game was a perfect example where Patrick Peterson shut Metcalf down. And so they had to use Lockett all game. And it for one, didn't work in that game because they lost. But ultimately it had a price to pay down the stretch.
Go look at the Bucs. The Bucs had 3 number 1s out there, and it worked out decently well.
And Mike Evans, by the way, one of the most selfless number 1 receivers in the history of the NFL.
Love Mike Evans.
And took one. I would imagine he's pretty happy that he won a Super Bowl despite the fact that he had probably his worst statistical year in a long time. And that's kind of what it requires.
You know what I'll tell you about that is Mike Evans is in a good position where no one's ever going to doubt his value.
Yeah.
And
Hines Ward was like that too.
He's going to be a player that other players are going to want to come play with.
Yeah. Hines Ward for the Steelers was like that.
Think
there
about
were years
that.
where
How valuable will it be when your alpha guy, other good wide receivers, like Allen Robinson talked about this. He goes, I wouldn't mind going to play with another great receiver. Mm-hmm. But there are certain receivers that's probably not the case for. Okay, let's go to the 49ers who are 2-1. What did you put their number at?
8.5.
That's what I had, and I said 8.5 probably should be 8.
So they were 8.5 going into 2019.
Yep, and they were 10.5 last year.
Right, and I think, but 8.5 going into 2019, where a lot of the same characteristics were the same. Jimmy G coming back from injury, defense still pretty good, although a little bit of atrophy
losing
now.
Sherman, they're going to have to
losing
replace
Salah
him.
as well.
Yep,
but probably better offensively than going in.
Ayuk, Samuel,
Kittle emerging as the best tight end or second best tight end in the league.
Now Trent Williams was the best left tackle in the NFL,
gone.
and he's gone.
Yeah.
I guess he and David Bakhtiari. 8.5 feels right. I am not – if you had to bet one side of that, even juice both sides.
Under, but I think you always bet unders in these things.
Yeah. In Kyle Shanahan, I trust. The number
8.5, I wouldn't like if you just went and bet your favorite team at 8.5. Like I wouldn't be like, oh, that's a dog shit bet. Whereas there's the next team we're going to talk about. If you bet over on them, you're
I
high.
cannot wait for this. But I'll say this: if you can believe that Jimmy G is not a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and still also believe that if he is healthy, which he certainly was not last year, if he is healthy, then Kyle Shanahan with that offense is getting them to 9 wins.
Yeah, Jimmy G, you just have to deal with a couple of clunkers every year. But if you if you put him in the sweet spot of that offense, like he's fine. Like it's and he should have won a Super Bowl. Like he's good enough to win a Super Bowl with, not because of, but with for sure.
The Los Angeles Rams are the favorite to win the NFC West after trading Jared Goff and more number 1 picks for Matthew Stafford. I will go first here. I said it will be 9.5, should be 8.5.
I said will be 10. Like, it's going to be 10.
It is going to be 10.
They were a 10-win team last year.
It's going to be 10.
And
you're right.
Everything else, you hold everything else constant, George. You add a quarterback.
I mean, it's got to be 10. They're the favorite in in the best division in the NFL. It's going to be 10.
And not a minus money favorite, not a majority favorite, but still a relatively decent favorite. It's weird, but I can see it.
This division is going to be fun, by the way. And there's still an outside chance, I think, that the Niners make a move at quarterback, either for a rookie or for Deshaun Watson, which would make. So I want to ask you this: if the Niners get Deshaun Watson, assuming they do pay a pretty hefty price, they become the favorite? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. And what would you put their win total?
Can you imagine the? Well, okay. If I was a Rams fan, I would be so pissed if San Francisco got Watson.
Yeah.
Because they probably won't be. They'll probably be like, "Oh, we're fine.
Yeah, we're fine. We got Matt Stafford."
Like it's like this.
Have you seen that no-look throw?
They're putting on a brave face, right? Yeah. But if the Niners get Watson, you should be pissed because you went from the favorite for what it's worth to like you're a distance from San Francisco.
So we have San Francisco at 8.5 wins right now. If they get Deshaun Watson, I would say that their total should be 10.5. Yeah. Now you say, okay, well that's 2 wins, and look, I think the difference between Deshaun Watson and Jimmy G is probably more like 2.5 wins difference, but that doesn't mean that you move the number.
Yeah. Watson at his best, as that last year's Watson's best year, and you sort of have to regress that a little bit to make the number make sense. Plus 11's absurd.
11's absurd.
11's absurd for a team.
That's more of the point. That you haven't seen do it before. That said, I would if they got Watson and it went to 10.5, I'm not betting the over, but I'm not betting the under.
No. 10.5 was a great under bet last year, especially when Debo got hurt.
Oh, and people hated us for it.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, defensive regression, guys. You got to see that coming. And that's the other thing with the Rams here is they were the best team in EPA per play allowed last season. Brandon Staley he's legitimately a savant with defensive schemes, and he's gone. And if you think that some guy's going to come in and like take the playbook and be like, yeah, I made a copy before you left, we're good, you're high.
That's never worked.
Never.
Like, oh, Steve Sarkisian's taking over for Shanahan, running the same offense.
Go listen to Brandon Staley talk. He was on the Chris Collinsworth podcast with Sherman. Go listen to him talk, and if you think that guy's replaceable, get yourself tested.
In my anecdotes suck, but like my third year of college, we had an offensive coordinator.
If it's from your third year of college, I'm excited.
Who was brilliant and who, in one season working for us, took us from 1-9 to 6-5, got a head coaching job. The next guy they brought in as the offensive coordinator said he was going to keep everything, quote, the same. And the problem with that is that is not your language. The Bullets firing on Sunday, and you're trying to speak another coach's defense is your other language. Things get your intuition isn't as good, right? And so that's why like these knockoff coaches like almost never work.
All right, that was guess the win totals. Let's recap here because I think we did a poor job of recapping these the last time. So Cardinals, I think it'll be 9. You think it should be 8? Were you saying you think it should be 8 or you think it will be 8?
I think it will be 8.
Okay. So I said 9. I think it will be 9, but I would make it 8. You said 8. Rams, I have 9.5. You have 10. Niners, we both have it 8.5. Seahawks, I had it 10. You have it 9.5. We're pretty much directionally on the same page with where we'd bet them. All right, it's time. We're gonna read mean tweets. Zach Tantillo has dumped like 1 million in here. This is gonna be something. But first, I want to talk about the most controversial pick in this draft because I did not expect it to be the case, and it was, as so often happens. We had the Atlanta Falcons at 4, standing pat and taking the best wide receiver in the draft, and the best wide receiver out of the last 2 drafts, Jamar Chase. And people are up in arms. They hate it. They hate the idea of Jamar Chase, Calvin Ridley, and Julio Jones. They hate it.
Yeah. Yeah, you know why Julio Jones always leads the NFL in yards per route run?
Because he
doesn't play that many plays. Because the guy looks geriatric out there when he's asked to catch a ball and take a hit. He's a Hall of Fame wide receiver. He also didn't play most of the 7 of the games last year. But even when he plays, and then the other thing, last time I checked, the Falcons are beneath the salary. They're above the salary cap by $50 million. And there's nobody on their roster that they can't cut Dante Fowler. They can't. It doesn't make. Are they going to sign Calvin Ridley to a big deal?
Jake Matthews, you made a great point. Jake Matthews is their left tackle. So you want them to sit there and draft a right tackle?
Yeah, let's draft a right tackle.
That's how we. You have one. I'm going to quote a famous philosopher. You have one shot, one opportunity.
He's a great philosopher.
Okay, with Arthur Smith and this offense with Matt Ryan, one shot, one opportunity. Are you going to actually give it a try, or are you going to pussyfoot your way around, make a bunch of excuses, and then burn the whole thing to the ground? Go get a guy that can actually make a difference, have one of the best offenses in the NFL, try to compete with the Bucs, and put your balls on the table.
Julio hasn't played over 900 snaps since 2015.
All right.
It's also not freaking illegal to have 3 wide receivers. It's just not. Why did the Chiefs lose the Super Bowl? Because they don't have a third wideout.
In fact, the Super Bowl champion Buccaneers had 3 number 1 wide receivers.
Actually, I mean, look, it's also not illegal to have a guy 29 of the NFL teams are depending upon a fucking player like Scotty Miller to be their every down 3. And you know what Tampa Bay is doing? When Antonio Brown's hurt, Scotty Miller steps in and is their 3 and surprises everybody.
Here's the other point I would make is, okay, so say you want to extend Ridley.
Tyler Johnson too, by the way.
By the time that Jamar Chase is up for his contract, you know who's not running routes in a Falcons uniform? Julio Jones.
I mean, Julio Jones is the same age as AJ Green, and AJ Green died last year.
You have to prepare for the future. And if the future in the NFL, I'm going to take a wild stab at this, is probably being a good passing team, you're going to need wide receivers. You are not going to pick in a position to get wide receiver 1 again, unless you fail miserably. Now, I'm assuming with Arthur Smith, you won't be doing that. So how could you sit there with an opportunity to grab this guy and not grab him? I actually think nothing gives me more satisfaction than doing something and having everyone and every fan think it's wrong. That tells me
By
it's
the
right.
way, the Titans drafted a tackle in the first round last year. He played 1 play.
Yeah, it helped them a lot.
And Arthur Smith did fine. That team did fine offensively.
Okay, let's read some tweets here. Zach vomited into our Slack chat.
Yeah.
I have no idea how we're going to
Honestly, this mock has to be a fucking meme. Ruongo, 1997.
How would that even work? I don't know. Did they really mock Tua already going to Texans in a Watson trade? Then Tua gets traded to the Pats. Must be fun to write sports fan fiction for a living.
I thought that was the best part of the entire mock was.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah.
I do think it's fun.
Wow, this is a really dumb mock! Exclamation point. Thank you very little! Exclamation point. Patrol Masters. This was on YouTube.
This is a nice one, actually. George and Eric greater than Austin and Mike.
Yeah, I spelled Johannes wrong, but it's Johannice S on YouTube.
Austin and Mike are fantastic.
Yeah.
So I don't even want to hear about this bullshit. Their draft.
That actually is the
podcast.
worst comment of these guys.
Yes. Mock was so ass. LOL. Steelers taking a wide receiver. Okay.
There are the people got really pissed at the Bridgewater's bet. I'd rather have Bridgewater than Roethlisberger take. People got pissed.
Yeah, maybe they should go watch some.
Roethlisberger was cheeks last year. I thought we won this battle.
People have not learned.
Yeah, it's like
the same people. Yeah. Look, here's what happened. I told everyone the Steelers were overrated. Everyone got their pitchforks. Turned out the Steelers were massively overrated.
But he threw for 500 yards in that playoff game where they got their ass.
But here's what's really emboldening. A month and a half of not being wrong, and all of a sudden you're back at it. And these people are back at it.
I kind of like this one from Roy Weinstein, probably Harvey's
brother.
Yeah. Total PFF George, PFF Eric, total stupidity. There are people in institutions who could have a better mock draft on medication with a Ouija board.
A Ouija board?
A Ouija board.
Are you serious?
I don't know how to spell Ouija. Zach's gonna make fun of me here.
What? You read the tweet, had no idea.
Yeah,
Now you've been owned. This draft is absolutely awful. One of the worst teams in the league trading out of the number 2 pick and taking on CMC's contract. Go home, PFF. You're drunk. I was not drunk when we thought of this trade. And if you don't think it's a possibility that a team overvalues Christian McCaffrey and trades for him, I don't know.
PFF College, PFF, please, football gods, don't send Waddle to Detroit. Have mercy. Didn't you see that kid gutting it out during the Natty? 2 T's in Natty, I would say. So he spelled it wrong. He just wants a chance. 4 exclamation points, 5 exclamation points. Please don't do this to him. More exclamation points. I am prepared to sacrifice a goat or sheep or whatever if you will just reconsider.
Fire whoever wrote this.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Go Dog 32. Another person, Who Day NZ, comments already delivering the salt as expected. Love your work, George and Eric. Look,
that person knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, the burner.
Hashtag Black Lives Matter. They figured it out. Thank you. Appreciate you. We got to get this person a free subscription if they don't already have one. That's the benefit of writing nice comments on our work. You get free subscriptions out of it.
It's not hard. So I've never read the word Ouija before.
Okay. Do you know what a Ouija board is? You do know what a Ouija board is, right?
I mean, I've heard of one.
So, do you know what it is?
I actually don't, actually.
All right. We're going to go to Wikipedia right here. The Ouija board, also known as a spirit board or talking board, is a flat board marked with the letters of the alphabet, the numbers 0 through 9, the words yes, no, occasionally hello and goodbye, along with various symbols and graphics. It uses a planchette, a small heart-shaped piece of wood or plastic, as a movable indicator to spell out messages during a seance. Participants place their fingers on the planchette, and it is moved about the board to spell out words. Ouija is a trademark of Hasbro, but is often used generically to refer to the talking board. Spiritualists in the United States believe that the dead were able to contact the living, and reportedly
I'm starting to look less and less like an idiot right now.
Reportedly used a talking board very similar to a modern Ouija board at their camps in the U.S. state of Ohio in 1886 to ostensibly enable faster communication with spirits. So we're actually in the homeland of the Ouija board, and you didn't even know what it was.
No.
And it'll allow us to talk to dead spirits.
Yeah.
Which is nice. That means we can use it to communicate.
It's interesting.
We can use it to communicate with Drew
here's the
Brees'
question.
arm.
Did you know what a Ouija board?
You fucking ruined my joke. God damn it.
Sorry. Did you know? So here's a question. Given your spiritual upbringing, did you know what a Ouija board was growing up? I feel like I was taught a certain subsection of all of that, and not anything else.
I knew what a Ouija board was.
Okay.
Who's the person? Okay, let me ask you this. This will close out our podcast. You have a Ouija board. Let's say it works. You get to contact a spirit. The spirit of someone who's died. Who is it?
I gotta make a joke. Like Mitch McConnell.
No,
I'm just kidding. I'm trying to find somebody. I didn't have one off the top of my head that was great. That somebody who's living, who is dead. You know, more or less.
I see. I thought Drew Brees was a good one. But.
Drew Brees is a great one. Big Ben. That's what I'm talking. That's
okay. Seriously,
if I had a Ouija board. Oh, seriously. My favorite mathematician is Laplace. So I would want to talk to him.
Yeah, a little transformation.
Well, Laplace did all these. Laplace was instrumental in a lot of Bayesian statistics, even though it was named after Sir Reverend. Did Reverend Bayes have a Ouija board, you think?
Bayes would be a fun one to talk to.
Yeah.
Who would I talk to? Oh, man. This is going to sound super corny, but I'm a huge Kobe fan.
Well, yeah. That's one that people...
I'd love to say
you took the Kobe news last year, understandably, but very bad. And then they tried to almost take your other favorite athlete from you just like a week ago.
I know.
Like I didn't even know whether to talk to you or not that day because I was like,
man.
And dude, this is the other thing. I'm pro media, 100% pro media, right? I love me. I think they are maligned for almost no reason. Most people are trying to do their jobs really well. they made it sound like Tiger was dead.
Oh, dude.
Like it was, there was like
it was incredible. They might as well. I thought they were gonna bring like a cask. I thought they were gonna start following hearses around Los Angeles.
They tried. Like,
is this Tiger? Is this Tiger?
Yeah, they were like, they're like slow news day. I mean, like our president doesn't come out of the White House very often. Like we got to fill 24 hours up, and they thought they saw an opportunity and they were ready to pounce, and it just wasn't to be.
I do want to say one thing about that. So the news breaks on Twitter, and I want live coverage of it at the moment. Do you know where I had to go to get live coverage of the crash in the moment? CNN.
Yeah. Well, because our sports people, our athletes are celebrities now, though.
But I get that. But how the hell? ESPN has 45 channels, $8 million poured into their app. They can't cover the news live. How is CNN more ready to do that than ESPN?
Well, we're getting into the weeds here, but I think ESPN's business model is very much away from the talk shows now and towards live sports. So I don't know if they feel that that's their like thing anymore.
Well, once they got back, so it took them an hour and a half, and then after they got back to SportsCenter, it was all they talked about for the next 9 hours.
Right.
My point was they weren't ready to react to it. Yeah, when it happened, they weren't ready to react.
I mean, breaking news is not like, I would say, especially after COVID, like they're more geared up for live sports than they are for breaking news /
What you're saying is they didn't have anyone on site.
Right.
Which I could see if it happened in Ohio. They have a fucking campus in Los Angeles. This happened in Palos Verdes.
I thought you were going to say Palazzolo. By the way, there's somebody named Palazzolo that owns the building that has like Steve's uncle, like
this has gone
Guillermo
off the rails.
Palazzolo or something, owns one of those buildings.
This was fun.
This was fun. It went off the rails a few times, but that's, of course, how the Ouija board.
I will tease the next episode on Sunday night. We may potentially have a phenomenal guest to talk about quarterbacks and the draft. It could be phenomenal. We love you guys. Thanks for hanging out. See y'all.